Welcome to the Real Estate Fight Club, a podcast for agents where you'll witness a battle of opinions about topics affecting your real estate business.
This is a series called Better Call Saul, where we discuss what is currently possible, that if it were impossible, or what is currently impossible, that if it were possible, would fundamentally change the way we do business as real estate agents. On today's episode, we will be talking about you are being sued by the United States of America. Here with me today is my co-host, Rachael, broker owner of Rachael Real Estate in Chicago. She's been an agent for 18 years and has been on the Pro Standards Committee for 8 of those years, currently serving as the 3 times past chair. She is passionately nerdy about all things real estate and all of those lovely real estate rules.
Busted. I am. How you doing, Jen?
Good.
Good. So, and with us today is Saul Klein, and Saul is the godfather of real estate technology. Saul has been licensed to sell real estate for over 47 years. And he was an original team member of Realtor.com and the creator of NAR's technology certification we know as ePro. Saul was personally responsible for the first 500,000 listings to be displayed to the public on Realtor.com, spearheading listing syndication, which is the distribution of your listings to the consumer over the internet. So welcome to Saul, and we're going to dive into today's topic. Saul, how are you going to protect us from getting sued by the United States of America?
Well, I think it's just kind of neat to be sued by the United States of America. Right?
That's like
unless your name,
that, right?
unless your name is actually on the summons. And I was telling you, a very good friend of mine who's the CEO of the San Francisco Association of Realtors was the executive officer of the San Diego Association when I was president. And my association was involved in an antitrust lawsuit litigation. And when we were served, because he was the executive officer, the service had said, Walt Bukowski versus the United States of America. And so
very frameworthy.
Yeah, well, you should frame that, but it's an important thing to remember is when you get sued by the Department of Justice, we hear this talk all the time. What does that mean? That means you're being sued by the United States of America. And our realtor organizations have been sued by the United States of America on numerous occasions. I've got books that are 3 volumes of litigation where we've been sued primarily for antitrust. Mm-hmm. And so the recent there was a settlement. What happened there was a lot of, you might remember the clear cooperation policy. You might remember where there was some controversy over, I took a listing, I'd rather market it myself before I have to put it in the MLS.
No, it's not clear or cooperative.
Right, and the MLS said, wait a minute, you got to put it in the MLS. And right, well, the Department of Justice, and then you had realtors saying, hey, if you're a buyer, it doesn't cost you anything. You can have my services for free. Right, so you had all this kind of, these types of things going on. And so the Department of Justice actually got involved in a conversation with the National Association of Realtors and a couple of years ago, came to a settlement. And the National Association of Realtors actually, Rachael, changed its code of ethics. Right?
Exactly, yes. They added verbiage to Article 12-1, says you can no longer, as a buyer's agent, represent your services to the consumer as free.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So
we're still seeing it, though.
What forced that? Well, that was forced because the National Association of Realtors and its MLS policy was being sued by the United States of America,
which as members, as a realtor and members of NAR, that's us. We're each.
That's you.
Absolutely.
So NAR, Katie Johnson, great legal staff at NAR, great people at NAR, and they had done this in years past, and that's a whole nother, so we can talk about some of the things that took place in years past, but they reached a settlement, an agreement. That's always better than going to court.
Right.
Because,
absolutely.
Department of Justice, they got like an endless open wallet. They can just spend all the
They get an open wallet and a whole lot of people.
Yeah, all they want. So NAR reached a settlement with the Department of Justice. And then what happened is there was a presidential election and the Department of Justice leadership changed. And the Federal Trade Commission leadership changed. And the new leadership that came in looked at the settlement agreement and said, we don't like that. We're backing out of that settlement. And NAR said, wait a minute. And people said, wait a minute, you just can't back out of a settlement. They said, try and stop us.
Right.
Right.
We're the
So we
Department,
did.
we're the United States. We represent the United States of America. We're coming after you. And so they tried to renege on this settlement, and it's been a couple years. And we heard the other day that a judge said to the Department of Justice, to the United States of America, you can't renege. You can't back out.
That's great news.
Yes.
I mean, at first glance, that's great news because we were thinking they were backing out so that the Department of Justice can go in and find more things that they want to sue us for. But I'm thinking,
and I'm certain that was their part of their goal was to just
Yeah, that would
find
be
as
my
much stuff
goal
as
if I
they
were
could. And right, absolutely.
but if we're saying, okay, now, no, you can't do that. But it's not really that great of news, or it's sort of it.
Well, so always until you get to the Supreme Court, things can be appealed. That's the first thing to kind of keep in mind.
Right, true.
So yeah, you don't think the Department of Justice is going to take this line down. And so we would probably think there'd be some kind of appeal to this process. But the other thing is, and what a lot of people fail to understand or recognize, is there's two paths of litigation taking place in the real estate industry. One is
Right.
through
This
the
is only
Department
half
of
of it.
Justice, and this is
Right.
the United States of America suing you. The other is civil litigation, where consumers are suing.
Right.
And that's the Moeller case and a couple other cases that have been certified for class action status, which are going after major damages, disgorgement of commissions, like 5 years worth of back commissions against this broker compensation clause.
Right.
So you got the civil litigation and you've got the government litigation. And what happened is you've got a pause on the government litigation side.
Right.
Now that's good news, but that's not ultimate good news.
Right, sort of. Because I
It's
think
a step in the right direction. It's our one step forward, and there'll probably be 3 steps back after this, but it's one half of it. And at least instead of both things going forward, we've got civil still moving forward, but the DOJ and the NAR suit stopped for now.
Give us a brief context about the civil litigation, like what that could mean for us as agents.
Yeah, so the civil litigation is about, and again, there's a history that got us up to this point, but about 1993, the rules of MLS changed, and the MLS changed from a unilateral offer of subagency to an offer of compensation. And the offer of compensation came through what do they call it, Rachael? This broker compensation clause.
Right. So the MLS is an advertising and marketing tool, but it is also the vehicle in which a listing brokerage offers compensation to the buyer's agent.
Yeah, and so why is there the offer of compensation? Because it used to be an offer of subagency, and agency disclosure kind of forced a change. And so to adapt, in 93, so that's a good number of years ago, right? Like 30 years ago, the model of the MLS changed. Now, if you're not familiar with MLS, there's a lot of ways to build an MLS, but the way that most MLSs are built, they're built around the model created by the National Association of Realtors. And if the realtor-owned MLSs abide by those rules, they become covered by the errors and omission insurance. And of course, that's important because you never know when the United States of America is going to sue you.
Right.
So you want to be covered by this errors and omission insurance. And so most MLSs, they say, you know what, we're going to follow these MLS guidelines written by the National Association of Realtors, and then we can participate in the errors and omission insurance in case where there's litigation. So almost every MLS in the country then changed, the model rules changed. They became an offer of compensation. And
which also meant that subagency was no longer a thing. Now, instead of an offer of subagency, it's buyer agency, and that compensation offer was made to buyers' brokerages who were exclusively representing the buyers.
So the civil litigation was where buyers said that they didn't have an opportunity to negotiate the commission. Right. They said, well, wait a minute. All commissions are supposed to be negotiable. Our agent didn't tell us. And so we're suing because we didn't have the opportunity to negotiate commission. As a matter of fact, no buyer's been able to negotiate commission for all these years. And so all of that buyer side commission, you can add it up. We're going to go back and try to disgorge all that and then add treble damages to it times 3.
Right.
Right.
And so that's the civil litigation side, where the litigation is against this, for the biggest piece, this buyer compensation clause in the MLS guidelines of the National
Right.
Association of Realtors. And
So-
Which is ironic, because when you look at our MLS, all these other countries that don't have an MLS are look at our MLS as like the best thing ever, and they want something just like it. Yet we have it, and we're being sued by the United States of America because
yeah,
of
when
it.
in this case, by
How
consumers,
ironic.
Yeah,
by
but
consumers,
Exactly.
also.
Right, by the
But-
consumers and the government.
So,
Yep.
Saul, as real estate agents and members of NAR, so as realtors, who defends us?
Well, we'll look at it. The National Association of Realtors has a legal staff,
Mhm.
and General Counsel is Katie Johnson. Used to be Lori Janik. Some of you might remember Lori. And so the National Association of Realtors, and I've been associated with them in one way or another, besides being a realtor for all these years, for many, many years. And it's always impressed me as a well-run organization, no matter what people think, because they don't know, a well-run organization with just top of the line people working for the organization. And so we've got a legal staff, and I'm sure they also have to bring in outside legal counsel as well.
Right.
To defend the National Association of Realtors, to defend realtors, and they do a great job of it.
So
And
is
here's
this
another
just from
example.
our dues that we pay through the three-way agreement to the NAR?
Yeah, so it's part of the dues. And remember that often we pay the dues. We pay it locally, and some of it goes to the state, and some of it goes to the national. And most people are just not aware of the benefits that come from the organization at any level.
Right.
They just think
Right.
I have to pay my money, and I get nothing for it.
But like, if we didn't pay that, and there was not, we could talk about RPAC later. We can do a couple sentences here, but if we didn't have these people defending us and looking out for our best interests as real estate agents and for the consumer,
As well as our client, as well as our
yeah,
clients,
the
right?
consumers too, like, what would happen? Like,
Well,
what would
there
be
is-
one possibility that would happen?
Well, so you're right. There is nobody else. And so who defends private property rights?
Us.
Our organization, right? And
Right.
our organization, funded through dues and also funded through volunteer contributions through something called RPAC, the Realtors Political Action Committee, RPAC. And you often hear realtors say, and I don't know nowadays, the way things are going with color, but the Realtor Party is blue. Not that it's Democrat, it's that, right? That if you're realtors, you support the people who support private property rights,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they're Democrats or Republicans or independents. NAR
Right.
looks for those people that support realtors, that support consumers of real estate. And so I myself can tell you that I belong at a certain level where I'm able to decide where my money goes for candidates. And while I might be of one political persuasion, I've often donated money to somebody else of another political persuasion because they're a great defender of private property rights.
But Rachel,
Absolutely.
what would happen if we didn't have these people polling for us? If as real estate agents, nobody paid their dues and nobody volunteered to donate to RPAC, what could happen?
Right. Well, I mean, I look at a situation that I had semi-recently with a client who ended up in a position where he was underwater physically and literally on a house, and I ended up getting some political, people in the political field, involved in the situation. And those are things that, when you need those resources and you need someone to help you, that's what RPAC money goes
Yep.
towards. So
Well, think about-
your general donations are going to anyone who's going to help you and help your private property owners with things with their property.
Like flood
And their rights.
insurance.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Flood insurance. People, they don't even realize that the reason there's flood insurance is because of what the National Association of Realtors does to lobby for flood insurance. You'd have a lot of people underwater, right? Really
Right.
underwater because
Right.
they don't have flood insurance, but it gets worked into the political conversation. And that's one of the things. Something else that a number of years ago, the banks wanted to get involved in real estate. And if the bank, let's think about, people trust their bank, people go to the bank's got the database of everybody. Couldn't the bank just say, okay, the guy sitting in the corner there sells the real estate and you'll pay a lot less. They're an employee of the bank. And so don't go out and talk to a realtor, go over here and work with this bank, with our person. And the banks wanted to get into real estate. And who fought that? And who kept the banks out of real estate? The National Association of Realtors. So there's things, but somebody who came into business today, they don't know that. And they just
for a good example of one thing that RPAC is working on right now too is that the government in some capacity is looking at making electronic vehicle charging stations mandatory in every single new construction, which is absurd. I mean, the whole idea is absurd. It's going to cost someone building a new home a ton of money, whether or not they want to use an electronic vehicle. Not to mention that by the time they pass a law on this, if they were to be successful with that, the technologies change, the electrical components change, all of these things change. So RPAC is behind the right. Nobody who can afford that.
Who can't afford it right now the way it is, right?
No. And you're talking about apartment buildings, even any new construction that is being built, they're saying they want these electronic vehicle charging stations in.
Well, so here's another one.
So RPAC is going to fight that so that we aren't stuck having to do that.
Rent control, right? When rents accelerate the way they're accelerating because they're not building enough and a number of different reasons, then people start to think we need rent control. But we know that rent control is destructive, that the worst thing that you can have is rent control. But if the public wants it and it's moving in that direction and it's politically expedient, then you will have rent control. Who fights for the property owners?
Right.
The National Association of Realtors, the State Association of Realtors, and the Local Association of Realtors. So every once in a while, you'll have a municipality wants to impose some kind of license fee. You say, wait a minute, I already pay a license fee to my state to have a real estate license. Now you're trying to tack another license fee. Sometimes the government needs more money, so they try to attach point of sale fees to where toilet retrofits and all now cost all this, right? Who fights for that?
And some of it's just so nuts too. It's just some of it's nuts.
But that's why we need it. A lot of people don't understand. So Saul, if people wanted to learn not only more about this Department of Justice lawsuit against us, against the National Association of Realtors, or they just want to better understand how RPAC fights for us, how NAR fights for us, where can they get some information?
They can find us at the dataadvocateblog.com, or we're on Facebook. Real Talk is the name of our group on Facebook. Join us there. You can send me an email at saul@bettercallsaul.realtor, but that's hard to remember. So saul@saulklein.com. And I answer all my email, and just come join us in social media. We have a great time just talking about this.
Right. And it provides some valuable context because most, as we know, every 3 years, realtors change over. 85% of realtors are gone and new ones are there, right? So it provides good context for what's happened in the past. And Rachael, if people want send you a referral in Chicago, or they have a question for you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to reach me is by cell phone at 630-542-8688. You can find me on social at Rachael Real Estate or via email at rreal@dealwithreal.com.
Awesome. Thanks for being on, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.